Hello and welcome to Rubber Chicken with a Podcast in the Middle, the internet's only twice yearly podcast exclusively devoted to the Monkey Island series of adventure games. I'm still Alistair.
I'm Gordon. Arr. That's me crashing through a window like a pirate.
With a cutlass between your teeth.
Yeah, that's it.
And in this episode, we're going to talk about Monkey Island Fangames at last, with a focus on the Devil's Triangle by Ushko.
Yep, that part one of our Fangame extravaganza. Who knows when we'll do part 1, 2, but this is part 1.
Yeah,
yes.
I think we've been talking about this since like 2022, right? When we first started doing this podcast.
We talked about this in the first episode.
Yeah, that we wanted to do this, and hey, if you're still here, thanks for sticking around.
I reckon there's 3 of you still here.
Yeah, it's been it's been 2 years since Return to Monkey Island came out. More than 2 years.
Certainly. Yeah, September, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. How do you feel looking back, Redux style on 2 years?
I remember last year around like this time or a bit earlier, we were like, oh, we thought about doing a 1-year retrospective, and we didn't have anything new to say. And now it's been 2 years.
We'll do a 5-year.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been 2 years. I still don't really have anything new to say about it.
No, we covered Return, and I think it's time to talk about the other stuff. But I reckon at 5 years we can go back and revisit it and say, hey, remember that? Maybe we'll even do one of those reaction videos to our old podcast episodes.
Yeah. It'd be like a picture of us laughing with arrow pointing to the waveform on the editing timeline.
The waveform looks inexplicably younger. It's got like a baseball cap on for some reason.
Yeah. Propeller cap.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey,
the sign of youth.
You know what I am unreasonably excited about in video game wise now?
I knew this was going to come up.
Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. What if that's good?
What if that's good? Maybe we should talk about that after we play it.
Yeah, what if that doesn't turn out to be a letdown?
Yeah, it looks okay.
Could be good.
Yeah. Are you looking forward to Indiana Jones? Let us know in the comments below.
Tell us in the comments if you're going to play Indiana Jones and the Great Circle.
Yeah, Alistair is like very excited for this, and even bought an Xbox.
Yeah,
so that you can play
got
it.
an Xbox Series X, so I can play it when it comes out.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I feel like I'm the big Indiana Jones nut, but I don't have an Xbox, so I'll come around and we'll have a few. We'll have some Pringles and play some Great Circle. That's in December, right? It's due.
Yeah, early December. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's birthday time for you, my man.
Yeah.
Wow. Put your order in.
Anyway, that's not what we're here to talk about today. We're here to talk about Monkey Island Fangames.
The following program is closed captioned for the thinking impaired.
That's right.
Yes.
We are scraping the bottom of the barrel for Monkey Island content. We're not even talking about official games anymore.
No, there is Monkey Island content. We've just refused to talk about it, I think.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about what we want to.
Yeah, we want to talk about this because it's fun and we have a lot to say, I think.
Yeah, I think so. So let's talk about... there are 2 places to start. There's Fangames and there's Klik and Play, which is what a lot of the Fangames were developed in. Shall we talk about Klik and Play?
Yeah, I was thinking let's jump back in time to the late 90s, early 2000s, when people were making a surprisingly large number of Monkey Island Fangames, I want to say. I think this is all springboarding off the back of the success of Curse, I think. Yeah.
Everyone went, I could do that.
Yeah.
I want to. And everyone building fan games of various quality. And if you went to the Mojo archives, I think now they're still there, but at the time you could rifle through a whole series of fan games of stuff people have made. Over the years, there have been a number of things that people have started and never... it's a good proof of concept kind of stuff, like a cool looking screenshot of Guybrush walking around some new environment that makes you go, ooh. And people have completed stuff through the years. Obviously, fan game quality is not typically up to studio quality.
No.
With a few exceptions.
Yeah, because as it turns out, making a game is really difficult, especially when you're doing it for free and you're a kid in the 90s.
Yeah, that's right. So some of the big adventure games that we remember probably from the early 2000s are The Devil's Triangle, which is what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah.
Its sequel, if you'd call it that, MI2, which...
It basically is a sequel, yeah. Chris Ushko retrospectively now calls it a D-make of Monkey Island 2, but yeah, it's more of a sequel to Devil's Triangle, really.
Yeah, and I think you and I would both agree that MI2 is the greatest Monkey Island fan game, and probably the greatest fan game of all time.
Yeah, it could be, but I would say that Devil's Triangle is the Monkey Island fan game in terms of being...
Sure. In terms of being an original
story, and I think in terms of what it was relative to a lot of what was being made at the time.
Yeah. So we were talking about what else was there. There was the Brother Island series of games.
Yeah, really weird couple of games. Were these Scandinavian or something like that? I want to say,
think so.
Or German maybe. Very, very surreal from what I recall.
Yeah, very surreal. Like a lot of weird stuff, very obtuse puzzles.
Yeah.
I think you and I kind of downloaded this stuff and did muck around with it for a while without really getting anywhere. The surreal aspect of the Brother Island, I think it did leave kind of an impact on me where it was kind of unnerving, almost in like a paranormal activity kind of way.
Creepy.
Yeah, you think about that scene in Grim Fandango when you go back to the land of the living and everything's all weird. It kind of gives me that kind of vibe.
Yeah. I remember that like the LeChuck equivalent was called Zabak, and he was like a recolored LeChuck sprite.
Yeah, and Guybrush was recolored, right?
Yeah.
And then another one was The Fate of Monkey Island, which I played. I'm not sure you played. Where you played, the character was a monkey, and it was a sprite taken from. I say a sprite. It was a screenshot.
Yeah.
Taken from Mr. Fosse's ship, the sea cucumber, from Curse, and it was the monkey standing there with the little black pirate hat and the sword. I think they made 2 parts of that, and then they actually got a cease and desist from Lucas, not from himself, but from the company. And these games were both made in a thing called Click and Play, which we'll get to. There were some other games around the same time. There was Monkey Island 2.5, which is just like a stupid little thing someone made. No offense if you're listening. Whoever made that.
Revenge and the Star
It's just like, what happened between... It's just a bunch of screens. And that's the thing with all of these. It's just like a series of screens you walk through. It's like every Star Wars fan film is basically just an excuse to have a lightsaber fight, right? And so these Monkey Island fan games are just an excuse to like make Guybrush walk around and maybe pick something up and use it on something. So in Monkey Island 2.5, you walked along to the right and you picked up the balloons and you got in a bumper car and you left your coat for some reason.
I remember it reused Rapscallion's Steam and Weenie Hut as a background for some reason, that game, because I guess it was like the thing that best fit in. It started off in the Big Whoop background, and then you walked through the Steam and Weenie Hut, and then you left. I can't remember anything else about
that was just meant to be like the Steam, like the fast food joint in the carnival, I think. Yeah. I mean, having a return to that kind of previously seen artwork, in the kind of uncanny valley area of remembrance is like very Monkey Islandy,
and kind of does what Return did years later with the Scurvy Dog Shack.
Scurvy Dog Shack, exactly, and just like the Big Whoop kind of carnival turning into the carnival at the beginning of Return. The two little kids.
And I was looking through this list online, and that Fate of Monkey Island came up, Monkey Island 2.5 came up, but I was surprised at how many there were. Brother Island, as I mentioned, as you mentioned, but and a lot of them were like silly little arcade games and stuff, like Monkey Island Shooter, where
stuff like
Guybrush and one's LeChuck and that kind of thing, and shoot at each other. But there were a lot. And yeah, a lot of them were, as you say, kind of someone gets an idea, I'm going to make a Monkey Island fan game. They port in Guybrush's Walk Cycle into Click and Play or Games Factory or something. And then they go, oh, actually, turns out this is really hard and I don't know what to do.
Yeah. By the time I've done that, I mean, it's usually, as I say, it's like proof of concept stuff. It's like,
and you and I did the same thing. But in this era,
countless times.
Which I've in my notes somewhat grandiosely called the golden age of Monkey Island fan games in the late 90s and early 2000s. Yeah, people were doing a lot of this, and I think fans wanted Monkey Island faster than LucasArts could give it to them.
Yeah.
So they took to making it themselves.
Well, I think everyone wanted Monkey Island 4 to be Monkey Island 3 again, didn't they?
Yeah.
Really? And I think everyone would have been happy with Monkey Island 4 in 1999.
Yeah,
absolutely. And just like the same artwork, the same music.
Yeah, give them that feeling.
Same
again.
production, same feeling as playing Curse. Yeah. You know, everyone just wanted more Curse. I think you and I included.
One that I found, and I only heard about this around the time that Return was coming out, but it came out in the mid-90s, was a Czech one called The Secret of Donkey Island. Have you seen this?
Yes, yeah. I remember that.
That's another one. I think there's a playthrough on YouTube. It takes about sort of 45 minutes to play through. Not very long or anything, but it looks kind of nice. I think it may have been made by an actual computer game company, sort of, who were too far away from America to be really threatened by copyright issues and stuff.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
It's funny.
That
is cool. I mean, they're always cool. I always love looking at them. And even though they were cheesy and made in Click and Play, I always loved playing them.
There
has been like a resurgence.
I was going to say, before we talk about Click and Play, there have been a few recently. You just linked me one called The Booze of Monkey Island.
Yeah, which looks quite involved. I saw that there was a playthrough on YouTube just this afternoon, and it goes for over an hour, I think. But
okay, I'm keen to check that out.
I kind of want to check it out properly. That's interesting.
I played that one earlier this year called Pirate Theme Park, which started life as a full-blown Monkey Island fan game, but the guy who made it removed the Monkey Island
That's happened before,
references from it, I think, so that he could charge money for it, basically. It was pretty good, but, and this is something a lot of people have criticized it for, is that it used AI artwork, and that was a bit of a letdown when I realized that.
I'm in two minds about that.
Yeah, I'm not 100% against that stuff, but I found it a tiny little bit, I don't want to say dishonest, but not entirely transparent, shall we say.
Here's the thing. I reckon if it was 1999 and you were making a game in Click and Play and you could generate a bit of AI artwork, it would definitely help you create your game.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, because when you're trying to, I don't want to say program, that would be too big a word, but at the very least design this, but also do the visuals as well.
Yeah, that's a lot. It really bogs you down.
As we know from the last time we tried to make our own adventure game a number of years ago.
I was looking at that the other day. It was turning out okay. There was another one. There have been a couple recently in the last 5 or 6 years. It's Monkey Island and Back to the Future, the fan game. Monkey Island and Ghostbusters, the fan game. I'm not sure. We'll put a link below, but I think it's maybe a German guy that's made it.
Or maybe Italian. He also did that Secret of Monkey Island remixed or whatever.
Yeah. Like they reprogrammed it, recoded it or something. Yeah.
Different puzzles
it's cool.
and stuff.
Like, it's just the love of this stuff, right?
Yeah.
So there's been a bit of a resurgence. These fan games, they never went away, really. I think it's possible to make games easy enough for one person. And I think that probably brings us along to talking about the tool that a lot of these things were made in and still are to an extent, which is Click and Play. Click and Play is like this kind of I would call it like almost like a rapid prototyping tool, but it's a game, like a basic game maker.
Yeah.
It's lived on throughout the years as the Games Factory and Fusion. And now it's Creative Fusion. I downloaded it a few weeks ago and I made a game with my son. I made a platformer and I made a Pac-Man clone. Because I can now use the logical mind that I didn't have as a kid when I was using Click and Play, and it's exactly the same. It just works on my new computer. You can do more with it now. It's more powerful. There are a bunch of plugins you can use now, but it uses like a visual grid-based method of programming events that is much easier to pick up than memorizing code, but is also quite limited in the things you can do. So things like if you're developing it's really for arcade kind of games, like a platformer or a shooter, like a side-scrolling shooter, like a space shooter or something. Very
like
easy to make and Click and Play.
Arcade game,
they do talk in the manual. I don't know if you remember this. I've still got the manual because I got Click and Play as a kid, I think in about 1994, a long time ago, maybe 95. And I still have the box and the manual and everything. And it says, oh, you could use this to make a game. And it cites The Secret of Monkey Island, an adventure game like The Secret of Monkey Island. And I was like, oh, wow, where's the information to do this? And I'm rifling through this big, thick manual. Yeah. It's not in there. You have to figure that out yourself. So Click and Play as a tool is not perfect for creating adventures, but so you have to figure out a way to hack it around yourself. So what Chris Ushko has done with the Devil's Triangle, and then again with MI2, is find his own way to develop an inventory system and a way to navigate around the screen and things like that, and thrown away some of the niceties that come with things like the actual Secret of Monkey Island, like walking around the screen and things like that, but still creating a functional adventure.
I think, as far as I know from what you've told me, right, it actually would be possible to make a Scum-style point-and-click adventure game in these tools, but...
but it's complicated.
It was beyond what I think people understood how to do back then. Definitely, and we'll talk about this more as we go into it. Chris Ushko, for example, he used kind of tricks to simulate the experience of playing not even a point and click. It was closer to a parser based system in some respects, but gave you the feeling of that experience without actually doing it, because it was certainly beyond us. It was beyond him. I mean, he's a little bit older than we are, but
I don't think he's that much older than me. I think he might be
a few
2
years
years
older
older than me.
Certainly beyond the capability of, I think, a lot of the users of this tool, who I think were mostly just enthusiastic kids in
absolutely
in the late 90s and the early 2000s.
The community lives on. There's a website called Glorious Trainwrecks where people share they still make Klik games and share them, and and using the art that came with the software package and stuff. And and you and I spent a lot of time mucking around with Klik and Play and trying to make games and dreaming that we could make our own games. I remember, spent many hours recreating Yellow Submarine, the Beatles film.
The Beatles Yellow Submarine as a series of arcade games, and eventually I gave up on it.
And it just turned into an animated film.
It's a sort of weird puppet show kind of thing. I don't know why, but
it's just, you're just enjoying yourself. It's no different to that, and drawing and colouring in and things like that.
And kind of similar to something like MI2 in that respect of taking a story that already existed and making it again, kind of thing.
Just making it over and over again in the way that kids do. Kids love to just kind of repeat the same thing. We definitely tried to make our own Monkey Island games. I know I definitely tried to make some that were just a rip-off of the Devil's Triangle. I remember I was off sick one day from school and I made, I'm going to say complete in inverted commas, a complete Indiana Jones game that I think might have been based on one of my Indiana Jones fanfics from when I was 13 or something. Along with a bunch of other silly games that we made. I think the best stuff we ever made in Click and Play was like very surreal, just like stream of consciousness type stuff. I made a very complex Mario game in the 90s that just went on and on and on. And just it was like a very basic platformer with single screens, no side scrolling. But it was just the fun of creating, right? And then often, as is the way with siblings, it's the fun of getting the other sibling to play it or read it or join in, or you work together on something.
Yeah, and there were a lot of games in addition to this that had level editors and level creation tools that we used to play around in back then as well, like Wolfenstein 3D, Glider Pro, of course. You and your son have been playing Lode Runner a lot lately.
A lot of Lode Runner.
As well.
The Bad Bugs Revenge, which you and I played stacks of.
Exactly. And those creativity elements in those were a big draw card as a kid, because
they kept these games alive, as you say. With Wolfenstein, we kept playing that for years after it had been kind of superseded. I think we were still making Wolfenstein 3D levels after Return to Castle Wolfenstein had come out.
Absolutely, because custom levels, custom art, and then it was like making your own manuals and stuff as if you were making a real game.
That's right. People still make them. People still make Prince of Persia levels.
Share them. That doesn't even have an official level editor.
No, but the official level editor, it was something that we were really crying out for an adventure. And if there'd been an adventure creator, we would have never put it down, I don't think.
Yeah, and it's probably worth pointing out that you and I have both attempted to use AGS a couple of times, and for my part, I just can't get my head around it.
I think I usually just run out of puff. What was the last thing we tried to... Were we building the last thing in that we gave up on?
We were doing that in Unity, weren't we?
Unity, yeah. And we were getting somewhere with it. Yeah. I got the guy to walk around the room.
Yeah.
I think... Watch this space. Maybe it'll come out one day.
Yeah, who knows?
Who knows? You made the art and I made the guy walk around a bedroom. But yeah, I think you and I have always we've always talked about trying to make an adventure, but we've never really found the tool to do it.
Yeah.
Because I think we're more high level type minds. And we need someone in the engine room to put it all together for us.
Yeah.
But that's okay. And anyway, that's Click and Play was that for a lot of people, and for someone with the ability and time and patience and drive of Chris Ushko, who now works as an animator in Canada, working on children's TV. He really ran with this stuff, and he still, I think last update on his website, he doesn't make fan games so much anymore, but I don't think we've seen the last of him. But he's made a bunch of Monkey Island fan games and Space Quest fan games. He makes his own DuckTales cartoons. I think this is all stuff he used to do.
Yeah, when he was a kid, he talks about making his own DuckTales cartoons, his own like Archie comics and stuff like that.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah. He kind of just did what we did, but much better, with like a much higher production value.
Yeah.
And then carried on doing it into adulthood and made it a career. And good on him.
Only a few years ago, he made a really funny Lord of the Rings Choose Your Own Adventure thing.
I played that a lot.
That was really good.
Yeah.
And
it was very clever.
A really like loving tribute to the books as well as the movies. Like, I love the books and hate the movies. It was really nice to see how much appreciation for the books there was in that as well as the movies.
He has a really good kind of... I mean, he's Canadian, right? Almost like, I would describe it as like this British sense of like parody and sarcasm. And just like his ability to remake these things and pastiche things that he loves in this way. He's a massive Space Quest fan, and he and a bunch of other guys, not too many I don't think, made this game called Stair Quest. Do you remember that?
No.
StairQuest was a few years ago now, and it was just like it looked exactly like a Sierra adventure from 1990, and all it did was parody the fact that you could fall off stuff in those Sierra games, and all you had to do in StairQuest was walk up screen after screen of these meandering staircases, and it was really easy to fall off. It was funny, man. I can never actually get it running, but I watched it on YouTube, so it was funny. It was clever. Just the ability to pick stuff like that apart. But I think his first major video game was The Devil's Triangle.
Yeah.
So should we start talking about that?
Yeah, so if we've kind of skipped ahead a bit, we sort of jumped around, but so Devil's Triangle was this Monkey Island fan game made by this guy, Ushko, in 1999. Escape wasn't even out at this point.
No, not for a while.
And I've called this the Monkey Island fan game. Maybe there were others that were as involved, but if there were, I'm not aware of them. It was released in 4 parts, like a traditional Monkey Island game. It was made in Click and Play, as we've said. It used a hybrid of assets from the first 2 Monkey Island games and Indiana Jones and the Fate of Atlantis.
Yeah.
Plus a bunch of his own original art that had been drawn in, I guess, MS Paint or something like that.
I think so, yeah. And just imported in. And just the music that he's downloaded from the internet, just MIDI files.
MIDI sites, And the story was based on some Monkey Island fan fiction that I believe he had written before he made
it was
the
like
game.
a novel that he'd written.
Yeah.
I think it's still up there if you want to read it. Yeah. So it's set between 1 and 2.
Yeah,
between
it's meant to be a
Secret and the Chuck's Revenge
bridging story between The Secret of Monkey Island and Monkey Island 2.
Yeah, but it doesn't really involve either. It starts off with Guybrush looking for Elaine and then just quickly it's got nothing to do with that after. He goes back to looking for Elaine at the end, I believe.
Yeah, that's as you say, that kind of introduces it, but because he says that Elaine disappeared one night, and so he's gone looking for her, and then he just runs into this crew of silly characters, and they go on this quest to find Big Whoop, and it's meant to introduce why he cared about looking for Big Whoop or how he heard about it in Monkey Island 2. So it kind of is meant to set that up as well. But as we've said, that kind of gets followed up in a different and silly way in MI2, which was his D-make, as he calls it now, of Monkey Island 2. But this... I think the thing to emphasize is, I think he was, about 15 years old or something when he made this?
I think so, because I think he's only a few years younger than me. Oh, older than me, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And I would have been about 13 or 14 when we played it.
Yeah.
And it came out in 99. Yeah. So about 15, I think, when he made it. Mid-teens.
Yeah, and maybe it's just the age that we were when we played it or something, but I happen to think for something that was made by a 15-year-old in the late 90s, it is very funny and it tells a very coherent story with clear character development and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think so. And it's I think because it's been planned out, it's not some guy that's just rushed into making a video game. It's been written as a story and then he's translated that. And I think he's come up with puzzles and stuff on top of that. But do you remember the day we played it?
Oh, the first time? No. You have a much better memory for this kind of stuff than I do.
Yeah, I don't know why. I'm not it's a crap. It was, I think, maybe the first day of the school holidays, and you and I were home alone, and I was just mucking around on the internet, and I found this fan game, and I downloaded it, just thinking I'd check it out, and then for some reason we got hooked on it, and we had to download all 4 parts, and we played through the whole thing that first day.
Yeah.
And then it was the old thing. Then after it was over, we were like, "Oh man!" And I emailed him.
Yeah.
And I think I've mentioned this in the podcast before, but I never told you at the time. I emailed him and said, "Man, I really love this. would you make any more? Because like my brother and I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I don't think he ever replied, but I think he wrote on his website that some guy emailed me like telling me how much he loved the game, and I think that was me.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we just, for some reason, it resonated with us, as you say, maybe as kind of early teens or whatever we were. It was full of kind of pop culture references at the time, more North American than maybe we were used to. But like as fans of Monkey Island and Weird Al and all the things that young teenagers are into, for some reason it spoke to us, and we played it a number of times. And then we were very excited when MI2 came out, and was kind of like even more of this Ushko Monkey Island verse.
Yeah. I've played Devil's Triangle now many times over the years.
Me too.
These days, I get it running by emulating Windows 3.1 in DOSBox.
Yeah, that's what I did. Yeah, I have Windows 3.1 running in Boxer on my Mac, and you can just run anything from that era there. So it's really easy to get it running.
Yeah, because it's obviously completely impossible to run click and play games in modern system architecture, but it runs perfectly well in a emulated version of Windows. Maybe a few bugs and errors have cropped up here and there, but still runs pretty well.
There were definitely those things at the time as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, it runs fine.
So I wanted to run through the story of Devil's Triangle and the 4 parts, because I think there's some stuff that I want to bring up and talk about, which I think is quite interesting in terms of it as a fan game and as a Monkey Island game that came out when the series as it currently exists was only 3 games in.
Yeah, okay.
So we start off... the story, I think, is a bit of a mashup of this plot of Secret and the plot of Revenge in some respects. Like, it's not completely original or anything like that. And it's kind of half simple adventure game and half crudely animated movie.
Slideshow.
He was criticized at the time for reusing so many assets from existing LucasArts games.
Did this on their own.
Which he draws attention to in MI2. But the basic premise is that Guybrush falls in with this pirate crew on this island. There's like the captain who dies very early on, who tells him about
Captain Walker.
Yeah, Captain Walker. There's Captain Walker's daughter Jan, who's the character who has to kind of warm up and learn to trust Guybrush. Who Guybrush obviously doesn't do a very good job of earning her trust because he acts like such an idiot the whole way through. There's Black Eye the lookout, Fat Al the engineer, and Granny.
And Grandma.
And they've got to try and find Big Whoop before this evil pirate called Sharkjaw, who has a giant battleship.
Army of rats.
And an army of rat men.
Rat men, yeah.
Pirate rat men.
Yeah. And Sharkjaw has a sword for a hand.
Yeah. He's Fester Shinetop in a red shirt with a sword for a hand.
Yeah.
He's our stand-in for LeChuck in this game, because LeChuck's not around because he's dead. I think
LeChuck is mentioned once, maybe.
Yeah, his ghost was destroyed, but he hasn't been resurrected yet. There's a little thing that Captain Walker says he's the guy who killed LeChuck when he was alive.
Yeah.
Says he shot him with a cannon in a sea battle when LeChuck was on the way to Monkey Island. So in the first part, Guybrush arrives and meets these pirates. He gets given this quest. The captain dies and appoints Guybrush captain, but Jan, the captain's daughter, won't accept it. There's this sort of classic tension, friction between these two characters. Lots of silly stuff happens, like they have to escape the hideout by launching themselves out of a catapult. And it's all good fun. There's like a stand-in for the voodoo lady who's a
Mal Wobbly.
Yeah, Mal Wobbly. Called Mal Wobbly. who says that if he's going to find Elaine, he has to find Big Whoop. That's meant to explain why he has this quest. And Guybrush points out when they're looking at the map that Captain Walker says it's a map to Big Whoop, but it just says Big Smudge OOP. And Guybrush says, well, it doesn't necessarily say Big Whoop, could say Big Poop for all you know. And he's like, no, it's definitely Big Whoop. There's some classic Monkey Island humor in there, like Captain Walker says he got the map from a Cracker Jack box, I think, or something like that. Yeah, very, very fun. I don't know, it seems to me like he was able to capture that Monkey Island humor very well.
Yeah, I think so. And there are elements of kind of exploring. There's not a huge world, but
no.
When you're in the fort in part 1, you can try to go to various locations. You can talk to various people. Once you've talked to one person, it triggers a conversation with another person. Jan, the daughter, is drunk.
Yeah.
Guybrush gets knocked over and stuff because Black Eye runs past him too fast. It's a lot of like slapsticky stuff like that.
It's slapstick, crudely animated slapstick humor.
Yeah, and also some okay animation, especially if it's just one dude.
Yeah, and uses close-ups that are drawn in kind of the Curse style. You get kind of Curse style rendering of Monkey Island 2.
Yeah.
Guybrush.
Guybrush has a little beard, right?
Yeah.
that he doesn't have in Curse.
Yeah.
And he's got that same kind of big coif of hair, blonde hair.
And the approach to conversations is kind of similar to Secret in terms of like it has these cutaways to close-ups of the characters talking and stuff when you get into a conversation.
Yeah, that's right.
Because Click and Play had a very basic dialogue thing, like a yes/no kind of dialogue box thing where you click no and just end the conversation, so you had to figure out workarounds to make that work and stuff as well.
It's like a choice box, but there's only ever one correct choice, but you can have a number of choices.
Yeah.
So you just kind of, there are some dialogue trees where you have to click through it. I think there would be other less crude ways to do that in Click and Play, I think.
Yeah, which he did in MI2.
In MI2, yeah. But the charm of it is like he just pushed ahead and made this game. And if you can forgive it of that stuff, and if you were around at the time and familiar with Click and Play, I think you're able to just dismiss that kind of thing and be like, well, this is how you do it. Let's just keep rolling along with the story. And a lot of it is just it's a lot of reading while people's mouths go up and down.
Yeah.
But it's funny. It's entertaining enough. It's not boring.
No. And it has quite decent pacing in terms of it has like a slow quiet bit, then there's a high excitement bit, then there'll be another slow bit,
there's got this kind of fundamentals there of someone who actually knows what they're doing.
Yeah, it's quite a linear story, but that's
sure.
There's nothing really wrong with that. As I say, a fan game made by a teenager at the time.
Yeah, on his own in his bedroom or something.
Yeah, and then if we move on to part 2 of the game.
So Guybrush and the crew escape.
Yeah.
On the ship. The ship is powered by a hamster.
Yeah, it's a propeller driven by a hamster wheel.
Yeah. And they escape to... what's it called? Shark Island?
It's called Scar Island.
Scar Island, apologies.
And this is the part of the game that I think is genius. And
I think this is probably my favourite part of the game as well.
And this is your kind of... You're given this town to explore because you have to find the supplies to kind of...
ship.
Yeah, to supply the ship and fix the ship because you crash it into a sandbar. Right?
I think it's a loose... homage or inspired by the Phantom Menace, isn't it?
Yes.
That's what I always thought.
Yeah, I think so. But had Phantom Menace come out by the time? No, maybe it had. Yeah.
I don't know, but it's got similarities to the Tatooine.
Yeah. But you're in this pirate town, but this is when it leans really hard into the anachronisms.
Yeah,
where,
it gets very fun.
Yeah, there's like hardware store, but it's actually just like a facade. Like there's no building back there. It's like a Hollywood
big wooden
backlot
facade.
kind of facade. You have to get the supplies from a giant vending machine, and use the
monolithic vending machine.
Gigantic vending machine that is so big that it disappears off the top of the screen, I think.
Yeah,
and
it does.
You get the only way it only takes credit cards, so you have to steal Stan's credit card by telling him that you want to buy a golden plunger from his used plumbing supply shop. And then Stan gets attacked by the IRS or something, or the FBI or something.
Yeah,
like that.
And you just kind of run out the back door.
Yeah.
It's great stuff.
I don't know. It's hard to convey. I don't know. It's still this stuff still cracks me up. Like I find something about this I find very funny. It's very Simpsons-esque sense of humor.
Yeah, that's true.
As well.
There's nothing in there that doesn't kind of have a payoff. No. Everything, there's at one point you have to have a tortoise and a hare race. And it doesn't just end. It ends by the hare is full of helium. No, the tortoise is full of helium gas, and the guy has to.
Full of helium, and it floats away, and the guy who owns it
and the guy has to chase it. Yeah, it's not just winning the race. It's just like this obtuse solution to the problem where you get rid of the guy by getting rid of his hair.
Yeah.
But also the idea of having a tortoise and a hare race. It's just like such a creative idea for a teenager to come up with.
Yeah.
And it's like. It's so very kind of part 2 of a Monkey Island game.
Yeah,
and would that be that out of place in Curse?
Spitting contest from Monkey Island 2
exactly.
as well. Like but in this you cheat in it by filling the rabbit with helium gas.
Yeah.
Which is kind of a Sam and Max-esque kind of thing, I would say.
Yeah. And also a very Monkey Island thing where you win by cheating or just completely destroying this guy's livelihood.
Yeah.
There's
also a bar.
There's a bar,
the bartender's meant to be what Manny Calavera would look like if he was alive. Yeah.
He's got skin on him, which is great.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you have to go in and what do you have to do in the bar? I don't actually remember.
You have to.
You got to talk to him there.
You have to get balloons filled up with root beer or something, don't you?
Yeah. I mean, the puzzles are a little obtuse, and it's easy enough to figure it out because you only have a limited number of 4 or 5 things in your inventory, and you can just stand in front of everything and press each number until something happens. But that's okay.
Yeah, the mechanic for using items is when you push the number corresponding to the item, it shoots a tiny dot, like a 1 pixel sized dot with a guybrush.
Which is a very click and play solution.
Yeah, the alternative to actually pointing and clicking on stuff, which would have been too difficult. And it works well enough, especially in these relatively limited environments where you can't actually move around a great deal or anything like that. The music playing in the bar is a MIDI of Bandstand Boogie, that song that Snake Plissken has on the tape at the end of Escape from New York. Which I think used to play on an old talk show or something like that as well in the States or something. But
speaking of talk show, like Regis and Kathy Lee appear later on in this game, do they not?
Do they?
Isn't there
Is there a reference to it or something?
Isn't it? Or isn't he on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire with Regis or something? Is that in part 3? Am I making this up? Anyway, let's move on.
Yes, this is dreamy.
I'm sure this is a thing.
There's a bit where you play 20 questions in part 3, but
there's something with one of them. Regis and Kathy Lee. I don't even know if people in Australia would know who they are. I think I learned this reference from this game and Weird Al.
Yeah. But yeah, this part 2 is so Monkey Island. This whole thing of like all the anachronisms, the fake world that you're in, just the sheer insanity of it is, I absolutely adore.
It's just really fun and funny.
And it seems to kind of forerun some stuff that you would get in Escape on Jambalaya Island and that kind of thing.
Yeah, or Puerto Polo, I would argue.
kinda
just that
crazier
kind of
than that.
open worldness. Yeah, it is crazier than that. But just the fact that you can just kind of wander around, interact with these characters, and it's not very involved, but it's enough to kind of tickle your Monkey Island.
Yes. Yeah, especially if you're a kid desperate for more Monkey Island content in like 2000 or whatever it was that we were playing it.
Yeah, well, when the years seemed to just dribble by, there wasn't actually that much time until Escape came out, but it felt like a really long time.
Yeah.
So you do end up getting the supplies in part 2.
Yeah.
And then you leave, and then are you attacked by Sharkjaw?
I think
At
you
that
go to
point,
his fortress, right, to try.
Part 3 is Sharkjaw's fortress.
Yeah.
Which is when you really start to see all the rats. This is the point in which in my recent playthrough, which I did this year, I felt like it was getting a bit slideshowy.
I think this is the weakest part of the game because it does turn into a kind of silly, like animated movie at a certain point where there's not that much interaction.
No, there's not much to do. And he's clearly thought about it in the novel when he's written it. That they have to get all the rats, and they have to tell all the rats to go to one side of the building so they can go to another, which I think is kind of a reference to a puzzle in Fate of Atlantis.
Yeah.
You end up going through all these pipes, and as you say, you fall down this big hole, and Guybrush just says to the camera, like, "Oh, do you want to play 20 questions on the way down?"
Yeah.
Which is kind of that breaking the fourth wall.
Guybrush gets pushed off a bridge by another version of himself.
Guybrush, which is kind of like a premonition to...
Because you come back and do that to the other Guybrush later.
To the other Guybrush,
in the game.
But that also happens in Escape. No, that happens in the Swamp of Despair, right?
Yeah. The Mists to Time Marsh.
Mists to Time, yeah.
But there's no time travel in this. You just...
No, it just happened.
But yeah, it's like you got to rescue the other characters, and then this is kind of how you earn Jan's trust eventually, right? And then,
because she's been under the impression that you've murdered Captain Walker the whole
killed
time.
her father. Yeah,
took his jacket. This explains how Guybrush gets his blue coat.
Sophia Hapgood sprite.
Yeah. Except in the close-ups when she's real.
Yes, when
she's been redrawn.
As a character. But she's kind of our substitute Elaine. Like, she's not a love interest, but she's someone who has to come round to Guybrush's side, kind of, or sort of similar to Elaine's trajectory in Monkey Island 2, a little bit.
A little bit, yeah.
Not
it's classic
it's a bit
stuff.
More of a classic character development than that, but yeah.
Like, it's not romantic, but it's nice. It's a nice little kind of character thing. Like, she'll do nothing. She's prepared to leave Guybrush behind, and
Oh, and
Guybrush is constantly trying to earn her respect, even though he keeps screwing up.
Yeah, the big guy, Fat Al, always calls you Bob.
Fat Al. Bob, yeah.
Classic joke.
That's a classic joke. It's like Only Fools and Horses.
Yeah.
You know. If you know what I'm talking about, you do. I'm not going to explain it. This is the part where there are lots of rats. The rats are really the rat men, and I think, would you agree that that's kind of a cool diversion in the Monkey Island universe? If this was canon, which obviously it's not, do the rat men work as a Monkey Island villain?
I think the rat men...
The bilge rats,
the
right?
bilge rats. Who are these? Anthropomorphic rat pirates. I think that they're fun in this. I would not want to see something like that in an actual Monkey Island game, which is why I don't like the mer people in Tales.
Yeah, they remind me of the mer people, but I think I prefer the bilge rats.
Yeah, the bilge rats are more fun.
Yeah, if you had a murderous crew in a new Monkey Island game and they were called the bilge rats and they weren't necessarily rats, but that's what, I would be fine with that.
Yeah. Oh, that's the other thing, the names as well. So there's I think there's Keelhaul Island, there's Scar Island, and the town is called Cesspool, which is a great name for a Monkey Island town.
Yeah.
There's Flotsam Island, isn't there? Oh no, that's from Tales. Oh god. Do you remember what the one that...
You're crossing the stream.
Shark Jaws is called Massacre Island. That's what I'm thinking.
Massacre Island,
yeah.
Yeah, so part 3 is a bit of a run around.
Yeah, not that much interaction.
Yeah, I think you defeat Shark Jaw at the end of that, don't you? Is that the end of Shark Jaw's story?
You think you do.
You think
right,
you do, yeah.
And you steal his ship, which is this big metal battleship thing.
Yeah.
Powered by gunpowder. Yeah, and you capture his first mate, who is this rat called McGee.
McGee, yeah.
McGee's like Bob in Secret.
Yeah.
Basically.
This stuff with like the ship's powered by gunpowder, right? It's like, we've got. It's just like riffing on each idea. What should the ship be powered by? Gunpowder, What should the crew be called? Bilge rats.
Yeah.
It's just like coming up with like these cool little ideas. Like, because it's a fan game, it's fine, man. It's fun. Anyway, you escape, and then part 4, you go through the mist and find in the Devil's Triangle.
Yeah, you go to the heart of
the island.
Triangle.
Yeah.
I feel like this puzzle, getting to the island through the mist, got to be inspired surely by the submarine controlling sequence from
I think so.
Atlantis, right?
Yeah, I think that puzzle is one of the best realised in the game, because you actually do have to kind of just use your melon and think a bit.
Yeah, because you've got the compass, right, which is stuck to the handle of the plunger that Stan gave you.
Yeah.
Parts ago.
Classic.
It has the thing of like the Stan gave you something in part 2 that
ages ago that you have to use now. Yeah. And you have to kind of reconfigure your navigation around that compass.
Yeah.
It's a nice little puzzle. And then you end up in the middle of the Devil's Triangle. And, of course, who is on the island in the Devil's Triangle but Herman Toothrot?
Yeah. Having a barbecue.
Of course. And this is one of the things I love the most about the Devil's Triangle is Herman Toothrot is on this island in the middle of the Bermuda Triangle, and he's just running a barbecue, and he doesn't care, and he's just asking you if you want to join in.
Yeah.
And like that,
that's like
so. Yeah, what about a nice big juicy piece of steak? It's like that's so MI for some reason to me.
Yeah.
It's like, who cares how he got there? Yeah. Who cares how he got to any of them, to Dinky Island as well?
Yeah. Yeah, it's
hilarious.
Of course, you would run into him there.
Yeah, he's the castaway, and it's the Forbidden Island.
Yeah, and there's a sequence where you have to get to the top of the mountain on the island. There's a tunnel that kind of winds up inside the mountain, and there are puzzles associated with the 5 senses.
Yeah, this is interesting.
10 years before Tales of Monkey Island came out with the Feast of the Senses.
Did they play this?
Yeah, and you go through hell, you meet the devil. Sorry, not the devil.
Yes.
Or you do meet the devil, but you meet the Grim Reaper, who is but he's not the ferryman, he operates a train that takes you through the not really the underworld, because it's inside this mountain, but yeah.
It's like a roller coaster.
Yeah. So there's a lot of stuff that obviously these are common symbols and pieces
like a
of
flaming
imagery and
skull.
motifs and stuff from folklore, but yeah, this is a lot of very similar ideas wound up being in Tales chapters 4 and 5.
It's interesting. I don't think anyone's ever I don't know if besides you and me and Christian Ushko, if anyone in the world has ever played the Devil's Triangle.
But do you think, we know that Tales was made by fans, a lot of the people Telltale games. Is there a chance that, probably unintentionally, people who worked on Tales had played Devil's Triangle back in the day and were unconsciously influenced by it?
Well, we found it through Mojo.
Yeah.
And some of the Mojo staff went and worked at...
Yeah.
Oh man, this is like
investigative journalism kind of stuff, man.
This is our like Woodward and Bernstein moment, discovering that like Jake Rodkin ripped off the plot of Jake Rodkin. If you're listening to this, we're not implying you ripped off the story of Dale.
Come on the podcast, Jake. You enjoyed Firewatch, right?
Yeah, that was good. Not perfect, but it's too short and stuff. But anyway,
I don't think he's listening. But yeah, there are similarities to this puzzle.
Yeah.
It's a lot more concise in the Devil's Triangle.
Yes.
And it's cool, and it's like a cool realised environment. I really like the last part of Devil's Triangle.
You have this big confrontation with like 80s pop and rock musicians, 70s and 80s musicians just towards the end.
Like this little mini game where you have to fight Roxette and Meatloaf.
Yeah.
And who else is there?
Like Cher or something, isn't there? Or something like
Cher,
that.
Tina Turner?
Yeah, I can't remember, but yeah. Which was kind of...
you have to fight Meatloaf. And whenever I hear the opening of She's Got the Look, it makes me think of this, like the MIDI version of
MIDI,
She's Got the Look.
Yeah. And this was kind of reminiscent of Chris Ushko had made like an arcade game called Laszlo's Spud Wars, which was a...
That came after this.
Was that after this? Yeah. But it used similar ideas, right? Of like... and MI2 did as well, of like an arcade shooter section where you fought characters from pop culture.
Yeah. Laszlo's Spud Wars was great.
Yeah.
I've got that kicking around my computer somewhere.
Yeah. Very fun. Very fun, simple game. Yeah.
Very quick draw McGraw type shooter.
Yeah.
No, whatever.
So
you end up getting to the top of the mountain and you find
there's a waterfall there and you find but lo and behold, it is in fact Big Poop. Guy brushes.
And is that joke really any different to calling the thing Big Whoop? Not really.
Well, the joke is that was what Guybrush suggested it could be in the first chapter, and it turns out to in fact be true. This is not Big Whoop at all. It's a big piece of gold. Sphere. Big sphere of gold protected by the devil called Big Poop.
Yeah. And it turns into a parody of the Wizard of Oz kind of thing.
Yeah, where the devil is this giant dragon that's actually being controlled by a tiny devil behind a curtain that you kick off the
pie devil from Romeo.
Yeah, it's a click and play asset. Yeah, called the Pie Devil. From a game called what was it called? Romeo and Juliet.
Romeo.
Just Romeo.
It's called Romeo.
I don't know if we're even in a position to explain that right now, but look it up.
Doesn't matter. If you know what I'm talking about, you know. And he kicks the devil into the water, and that's the end.
The shark jaw shows up again. You have the classic bad guy who you thought was dead shows up at the last minute.
Yeah.
Oh, there's a bit at the start where you're interrogating McGee as well by shining a light in his eyes, like a police interrogation sequence.
You scratch your fingers on the chalkboard. That's the solution of the joke.
Sharkjaw shows up. You defeat him by throwing like blowtorch can or something at him that he accidentally shoots and blows up in his face. And then you kick the devil off the mountain, but then you have to escape with the huge piece of gold in your ship, and the devil chases you. And I think you defeat the devil by chucking something in the fuel intake pipe of the ship that blasts the devil in the face to get you out of the Bermuda Triangle.
You've been carrying a fire extinguisher the whole time, which I feel like you use 6 times in different puzzles.
Yeah.
And I think you can try to shoot that in his face, but you eventually blow him up by making the ship go really fast.
Yeah, and every time in this anything like funny happens or someone ends up in a funny situation, the opening musical sting from Sam and Max Hit the Road plays. Like Guybrush slams face first into a mast, or the devil gets a big thing of rocket exhaust in his face or whatever. It's always
and I associate that music with Monkey Island now.
Yeah, more than Sam and Max.
More than Sam and Max. It sounds like a sting from a Monkey Island game.
Yeah.
There's something piratey about it.
And then so everyone got what they wanted. Jan and Guybrush learned to get along, and this explains how Guybrush got all his money at the start of Monkey Island 2, because they sell the big piece of gold for cash.
Very neat.
And they go their separate ways, and it ends on a humorous parody of Return of the Jedi. With
Yoda
Captain
and
Walker,
Obi-Wan,
Yoda,
Captain
and Obi-Wan
Walker.
Kenobi.
She's a fine girl, Walker.
And they go, what happened to all the other characters in the game? And you see Herman shows up on Gilligan's Island, I think.
Yeah, I love that.
I feel like retelling this, it sounds like a lot of it's like ha funny reference to thing from
funny.
popular culture. I don't know, but it's not done in this some kind of like obnoxious Family Guy way.
No, it's very sweet.
It's not.
It's just like, wouldn't it be funny?
Yeah,
if he turned up?
It's done in a very good-hearted way, and it's a very like Gen Y / millennial kid who was raised by boomer parents who watched lots of old like 60s TV and stuff like
I was
that.
gonna say
Kind of humour.
I don't think the TikTok generation knows what Gilligan's Island is.
Yeah.
Because that was an old reference
Yes.
then.
Yeah. But because of reruns and stuff, that kind of thing was on all the time.
These very cultural touchstone American things.
Yeah.
The kind of thing that Weird Al would think that everyone knew.
Yeah.
That's funny. I like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like the Return of the Jedi parody.
Yeah.
I feel like that would be old hat now, but at the time, this Star Wars parody thing, it was still around.
Yeah.
It was not nearly the same.
Yeah.
And as you say, it wasn't like the Family Guy obnoxious kind of. Although I don't hate that.
No, it got a bit overdone after a while, but
yeah. So it's fun. I wonder how it would be if you were listening to this and you thought, I'm going to check this out, and you managed to get it running. Would you enjoy playing the Devil's Triangle, or are we riffing off nostalgia? I'm not sure.
Well, that was what I was...
But I know that I'll play it again.
Gonna say, I still play this from time to time. This still cracks me up, as I've said. I think there's some genuinely clever... It's good Monkey Island style humour. It's
when you want some more Monkey Island and you've listened to all of the Robert Chicken with the podcast so many times.
and I was thinking, does this hold up? Could you recommend it to someone now? I would say, if you did not play like Fangames or even shareware games and stuff in the 90s, you will probably find this very rough and too crude maybe to handle.
I wouldn't want to insult people there. I would recommend checking it out.
Oh yeah, for sure. But you would have to go into it with the frame of mind, that it is very basic. It does reuse a huge amount of existing assets from other games and stuff like that. Yeah, but
also it's coherent enough to not be... You don't get stuck and it's not boring.
And if you do, there's a walkthrough on his Chris Ushko's website. He still has for it and stuff for some of the weirder controls in some sections and that kind of thing. And
he's got little built-in things like if you get stuck, you can restart the frame and things.
And it is, as you said, it's very sweet. It's good-natured.
Definitely.
And it has a very good sense of humor.
It's just for the love of Monkey Island, really.
I've played it way more times than I've played some real official Monkey Island games, and to be quite honest, I am more fond of it than I am of some official Monkey Island games.
Why are you being so coy? We know what you're talking about.
But as you say, maybe it's just nostalgia.
I'd rather play this than Tails.
Yeah. But it is,
so would I.
Yeah, it is hard to get running as well. You have to be prepared to...
It's not that hard. Once you get it going.
Yeah.
If you're having trouble, drop us a line.
Yeah.
On Insta or YouTube, and we'll give you some instructions.
Yeah, that's the Devil's Triangle. It's great.
A bit of fun.
And
of the time, inoffensive, family fun.
And very much...
If you're prepared to... if you're prepared to play a game by a guy who was 15 or 16 and made this in his bedroom,
Yeah.
and obviously it was a labour of love,
Yeah.
and it's now kind of this forgotten thing on the internet, I would give it a go.
Yeah.
Especially if you want more kind of classic MI humour. I think it's the closest you're going to get to the first 4 games, maybe.
Yeah, and very much occupies my mental landscape of Monkey Island along with the official releases.
Yeah, it's almost canon. It's not. It's good. It's good enough to be.
Yeah.
I think it's definitely something you and I will go to if we're going through a Monkey Island phase.
Yeah.
And
Oh, yeah.
need a bit more.
Yes,
You
absolutely.
need that extra hit.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, I'll play Devil's Triangle and I'll play MI too.
Yeah.
So thank you, Chris Ushko. We have enjoyed your game for many years. You probably didn't expect that.
Yeah. We're
still going to be talking about it.
Who would have thought? Yeah.
And I still check your website probably once every 6 months or so. He tends to only update it. It's like now like this complete HTML, like old school 90s kind of deal. And he like updates it on Canada Day typically and says that he's a dad and does stuff with his kids and works in the animation industry and whatever else he's doing. So we hope you're well. Alright, that's Devil's Triangle. I think either next time or in the future, we will talk about MI2, which is the sequel to this, and as you said, the demake of Monkey Island 2. Again, made in Click and Play, higher production values, definitely ramping up the humour. He was a bit older than when he made it. I'm guessing he was probably 18-ish. It's not like M-rated in any way or anything, but it is an affectionate parody of Monkey Island 2 and a bunch of movies and stuff at the time.
Yeah, basically turns Monkey Island 2 into a giant tribute to 90s and early 2000s pop culture. Along with a whole lot of like boomer pop culture from his parents' era and stuff as well.
It's the same as us, right?
Yeah.
That we played it a lot.
Yeah.
More than any game I think we bought that year, probably.
Yeah, probably.
It was about 2001, 2002.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, we'll probably talk about that soon, if not next time. We've got is this the second episode of the year?
Yeah.
Maybe we'll try to put one more out before Christmas.
Yeah. That's the plan, I think.
That's the plan. Yeah, good plan. I don't know why it takes so long between episodes. I have this theory that we like talking about it when it's warm.
Yeah.
Because it reminds us of being a kid.
Yeah, and being in the Caribbean, right?
Yeah, that must be it. There's unpredictable tropical Caribbean trade winds. All right, so shall we wrap it up?
Yep.
All right. Thank you for listening to Rubber Chicken with a podcast in the middle, the only podcast that asks what's sharper, your sword or your wit. As ever, I've been Gordon.
I'm Alistair.
Oh, and I forgot to mention...
Look behind you! A 3-headed monkey!